before we go on air.
Welcome back, everybody. One of President Obama's main themes last night was protecting the middle class, and the numbers show really what is a squeeze on the middle class, so that it is real. In 2007, the median income was just over $52,000. Look at 2010, though. That number is $49,000. That is a 6.4% drop since the recession and the lowest since 1997. Americans increasingly believe that there is a growing class conflict. If you look at some numbers from Pew Research, 66% of Americans last year say there are very strong or strong conflicts between rich and poor. Author Don Peck joins us this morning. You have written what I think is one of the best assessments of what has happened to the American middle class. The book is called Pinched, and it's off of an article that you wrote for The Atlantic. It was a cover story. So where did the middle class go?
Well, they're not going anywhere right now. You know, it's interesting in this recession. You mentioned the income drop for the middle class. There's also a huge loss of wealth because the middle class carries most of its wealth in housing, unlike the rich. So what we saw, which is highly unusual in this recession, was a much larger loss of wealth for the middle class than for rich Americans. To some extent, that's simply going to take a long time to rebuild. I do think that in the State of the Union last night, you know, we saw some encouraging notes from President Obama. You know, I think the most important thing for the middle class right now is a faster economic recovery from the Great Recession. And I was encouraged that I heard a lot about infrastructure investment, about the payroll tax extension, about accelerating the recovery, less about deficit reduction. Deficit reduction is going to be very important for the economy once it's healthy again, but pursuing it too early could choke off a recovery that is now beginning.
One of the things I thought was the most interesting about your article and your book was you really analyzed sort of the role of American men. Fascinating to see the plight of men, and it's bad.
Absolutely. You know, in 1967, the average man in his prime working years, men in their prime working years, 97% of them were working. You know, today that number is 76%. So men haven't responded to an economy that has moved away from blue-collar work, away from outdoor work, away from construction, away from manufacturing. They haven't gotten more education, unlike women. They haven't moved into growing service sectors like healthcare and education. I think one of the biggest problems that we face in the long term right now is, you know, how to get men back into good jobs, how to get men working again, not just for their own sake, but for American families. Because when men are struggling economically, when they're not working, what you see are large family problems as well. Fewer marriages, more divorces, more children growing up in single-parent households.
The president has talked about a recovery, but really when you look in your book, you analyze sort of who's really recovering, and it's not the people in middle class and lower middle class who are sort of bouncing back.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think when you look at areas like Washington, D.C., where we are, when you look at Manhattan, when you look at Silicon Valley, when you look at kind of the enclaves of the rich, of the creative, of the highly skilled, those places have been bouncing back. A lot of wealthy Americans have been bouncing back. You see that a lot less in Phoenix, in Tampa, in Las Vegas, and former middle-class meccas. So yes, we're seeing in this recession, in this recovery, kind of a continuation and acceleration of some of those divisive forces that have been really bifurcating the country, you know, for quite a long time.
The book is called Pinched. I know David Frum has downloaded it in the 3.5 minutes that we have been talking. I thought this was so great and just so revelatory about sort of all the processes at work and that have been at work in the American economy for decades. So thanks, Don Peck, joining us. The article is also in The Atlantic, so people can Google it as well.
Thank you so much.
Coming up next, we've been talking about date night at State of the Union, so we'll review, everyone. We'll talk about who paired up with whom. That's in our reveal up next. Stay with us.